So we start the latest Satsanga on the 22nd of September 2012 with an introduction to a new member, Michael Eckhart.
With my aunt who went to India, and she started being started studying with Babaji over there, with Sai Baba, sorry. And she used to come around and read some books for us when we were kids, and that's how it all started. And lately, in the last 5 years, I started to get a bit more into meditating, and so I just started meditating half an hour every morning, really, and experimenting a bit with, when illness came up, how to neutralize through meditation.
Okay, thank you, Michael. That's fantastic. Just for everybody else's knowledge, so Michael joined us last month, but got the timing wrong. That's no problem. That happens with all things that we do. Even with my readings, we get confused with time zones. No problem at all. It's fantastic, Michael, that you've joined us. Right now, we've got something like 11 people on this particular transmission. There's over 30 people in the group who drop in and drop out, as the case may be. So it's fantastic that you've joined us, Michael. Just to let everybody know who listens to the recording later, because by joining in with the recording later, you all come into the same event space. We've got Yvonne, we've got John, we've got Joe, we've got Michael, we've got Alan and Meryl, we've got Fiona, we've got Manny, we've got Marnie, and we've got Guy and Anne. So welcome to all this month, which is fantastic to hear you all. And okay, so the agenda for presented last time is being sort of repeated in some way, although I'm trying to change it slightly in terms of the end meditation. So the end meditation we did last time was a meta-concept meditation to raise the frequencies of the earth. I'm going to change it slightly and expand it somewhat to include the frequencies of the physical universe. That's going to be an interesting exercise to do. But in essence, the rest of the agenda is based upon understanding a bit more about gossip, because gossip is something that we all get involved with quite by accident most of the time. We don't even know we're doing it, but it's actually a very, very easy way of getting karma. we don't realise that at all. And then I want to talk a bit about the detail behind the Source Entities multiverse, because I've received some information as part of the dialogues I've been having with the Origin about some of the extended structure that it is aware of. There's clearly a lot more than it's giving me, but I'm going to describe some of it to you, so you've got a bit more of an upfront knowledge of it, because this is coming out as part of the dialogue I'm having for the next book, which is called The Origin Speaks, which is a progression from the book Beyond the Source, and Beyond the Source Book 2, which is currently with the publisher, which is of course Ozark. Then I want to go through a bit about event space and how event space multiplies itself, and actually a bit about event space, because it's quite independent of the entities that can create it. It is an interesting energy, or set of energies in its own right, and there's an awful lot of componentry there, and that componentry came out in Beyond the Source Book 2, which is again currently with the publisher. But I want to just explain to you how it multiplies itself, how it creates itself, what the process is that makes parallel universes come into existence in variance to what is currently there as structure, which is, shall I say, simultaneous universes that we have as part of the structure of the Source Entities multiverse. And then we'll go through some questions and answers before we go through to the end of the meat meditation, which will take us about 15 minutes, I would suggest, to increase the frequencies of the physical universe. So before we carry on, does anybody have any questions about this? Because there's quite a lot of information there that's going to be potentially thought-provoking. No?
No.
Okay. So, okay, based upon that then, if we can put our microphones on mute whilst I go through the information. I'm just going to make sure I've got this okay, the lineup of people here in order properly. No. Going down. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to go into a little bit about gossip right now, because gossip is actually a very insidious method of interaction that we have with each other, and it is, in essence, an extremely insidious method in which we can gain karma. Now, karma is extremely insidious in its own right. It's not just about what happens to us if we push Granny under the bus and kill her, or we try and recompense that by helping the next old lady across the road. It's all about how we interface with the physical universe and, in essence, the lower frequencies that the physical universe is created by. Because the physical universe is low frequency energy, and because we are experiencing the lower frequencies that are represented on the physical universe within a, shall I say, a mechanical body, that which we call the human body, that human form factor, which we need to use as a suit of clothes or a diving suit, if you want to call it that, or even a submarine, for instance, to allow us to experience the lower frequencies whilst being in a low frequency environment at the maximum of our ability. We do get, shall I say, intoxicated or addicted to the stimuli, all sorts of stimuli, whether it's physical feelings, whether it's emotions, whether it's desires, requirements, must-haves, all of these different things actually make us more attracted to existence, albeit temporary existence, but nevertheless we do get attracted to it whilst we are incarnate, to those stimuli that are part of the physical universe. And we decide to come back on a regular basis to experience it more and more and more. It's a bit like getting hooked on drugs, in essence, but that's what happens. But in essence, gossip is another way of attracting that lower frequency, lower frequency energy. And what happens is when we enter into gossip, we in essence start to become involved with the need to gain favour with somebody else, become part of some bigger ring of individuals, some other collectivity, and it starts to take over ourselves. So it creates an overlay mentality in us, circumventing our own mentality, making us think in terms of that which is required to be friends with somebody else, for instance, or part of somebody else's group of people. Now, those of you who have, shall I say, been part of a gang at school, for instance, or a little clique of individuals at university or at work, will recognise that unless you're part of that clique or that gang, you feel like you're nobody. Now, and the reason why that is because being part of that clique or that gang of children at school is actually a form of collective existence. We feel good by being part of that collective existence. We feel good by talking about somebody else as a group, knocking them down, and sometimes we praise them as well, because sometimes we do like to identify individuals who are successful and praise them. We do enter into a collective mind mentality. So what happens is it actually destroys our free will, because we become part of the need to behave, respond, talk about those individuals who are not part of the group and who are, in essence, abhorred by the group, not liked by the group, disliked by the group, or promoted by the group if they're part of the group as well, collectively rather than individually. So it's a really difficult place to get into, and gossip is something that we all embark in, but we rarely do we recognise that we're doing it. Now, it's a as well as dragging us down a downward spiral frequency-wise, and therefore being insidious because we don't recognise it's happening. It drags us into the leader of the group's energy. If we're part of a group, or part of a clique, or part of a gang at school, who are controlled by one specific individual who has got more charisma than the others, then we start to be drawn into that energy of that individual, because the whole group takes upon the energy of the leading individual within that group. So he drags us into the other's energy and boosts their energy as well, by the way, which is an interesting thing to think about. It boosts the energy of the leader of the group and of the group itself. So by being part of that group and being part of that gossip round, if you want to call it that, it gives us power by being part of that collective energy. So we start to get involved with something called the law of synergy, where we, as a collective, we start to work together on a collective purpose, which in this instance is gossip based upon the dislike of one individual or something that one individual's done, and we feel powerful as a result of that. So we get intoxicated by the being part of that group, being part of that gossip group. So the energy of that group is augmented by the desire for us to be part of that group, and it creates the collective energy of that group against a specific entity, with the view to it being part of the self-generating energetic function of the group itself. So if for instance, there was a specific entity or person, I'll use the word entity because entity refers to an individual who is, shall I say, incarnate, then we do start to see that, in essence, that person is the target of ridicule or gossip from the group, and they become the focal point of the generation of the energy that the group enjoys and the group members enjoy when they are collectively gossiping together. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because it actually aligns us to a specifically downward spiral, a collective downward spiral, because we're all getting together as a collective, which is good, working together, which is good, but for totally the wrong reasons, and therefore we're collectively dragging ourselves down the frequencies, linking ourselves to an energy sink as a result of this power that we feel whilst in this group or this clique, collectively gossiping or talking about somebody negatively together whilst we are together. Okay, so it's something to be really avoided, and if you do find yourself being dragged into gossip, and a group could be one or two people, together, it quickly grows. I mean, you look around when you're in a work environment where somebody's talking about somebody else and they're knocking them down. Look at how very, very quickly the group grows. It's amazing how all of a sudden you can get two people together and somebody else will come along and start, oh yeah, well, I agree with you. That person's a complete idiot. They should have done this, they should have done that, and then somebody else comes along and does exactly the same thing. The group can grow very quickly, and depending upon whether or not there's a desire to be part of a series of friendships with certain individuals of that flash group, I'll call it a flash group because sometimes these groups suddenly grow from nowhere, then there is if you like, an ulterior motive to be part of that group, because there's a part to be liked by certain individuals or become part of a group of individuals who are supposedly elite, or whatever that word elite means. Okay. Any questions on that? Because I think that sort of sums it up quite nicely.
I just want to say that I'm getting 60% of the information because it's breaking up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody's got their microphone on, can they mute it, because it does knock out the reception of other people? But I wouldn't worry, Michael, because in essence this is recorded anyway, and I'll send you the recording as a star.mov file, which is an Apple. It's an Apple QuickTime file, so you'll be able to listen to it later.
Okay.
Okay, so don't worry about that too much. But well pointed out, Michael. If any of you've got your microphones on, please turn them off, mute them, so that everybody else can hear what's going on, because it does cause a bit of a problem sometimes. Okay. Yes, Mamo.
Yeah, you're talking about the groups. Well, what I feel is a lot of people are just like sheep. They just don't think for themselves, and I think it's led. They just sort of get intoxicated by the energy of their leader, gang leader, whatever it might be. That's what I'm taking. Am I right?
Well, that's the thing, you see. The whole point of it is, and this is, if you can go back onto mute again, Mary, this is an important comment, because actually the sheep function of being is part of the need to be one, in oneness with it's. There's an underlying subliminal memory of us all being collectively together in oneness, when we are disincarnate. So there's an underlying desire to be back in that condition, and the gossip group does that. It's sort of a surrogate oneness function. Right. So what you call sheep, people follow it like sheep. Yeah, absolutely, because they see the collective opportunity, the opportunity to be back in the collective. And they don't understand that actually this particular function or form of a collective is negative. They don't understand that. But what they feel is, somewhere, somehow, they can remember being in oneness with everything and everyone, disincarnate or energetic. So they start to get pulled into it, because they do feel, they do recognise that this is what it's about, being together as oneness, working together, behaving together, working as in total service, without the need for reward, for the benefit of the group. All of this comes into it, and you'll find that some individuals within the group will kowtow, or will put themselves forward in total service to the leader of the group to try and curry favour. And this is all part of it. It's all part of the underlying need to be part and back in the feeling of being in the collective function whilst we're disincarnate, because we're all part of everything when we disincarnate, except we're divorced from that temporarily whilst we are incarnate. And this is what happens to us. We start to go back into this. I'm back in a collective again now. The fact is, it's a negative collective. Is not important. The fact that we feel we're back in a collective again is why we feel it's acceptable to gossip about people whilst in a group. That's it.
Guys, what's the best way to avoid it, or see the first earmark of being compelled?
What's the best way?
Yeah.
Just be observant. Just be observant. You'll know it as soon as somebody starts to talk about somebody else. You will know that you should disengage. Yeah. If it's praise, then it's a form of gossip, but it's praise. It's a positive. I'm going to call it that. But when it's derogatory, then you know to disengage. In fact,
even if it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If somebody is doing something wrong and then there's being used, and even if it's true and somebody's using it as a shall I say, a springboard for gossip, avoid it. When we are observant of that which is happening around us, we can spot it a mile away. But it does take practice. And you may find that you've been involved in gossip for about 25 minutes before you suddenly realise, hang about, I'm involved in gossip here. How did I get pulled in? It's that insidious. It's difficult. And we all do it all the time. It's just the need for us to divorce ourselves from it and become aware of the opportunity is the hard part. And eventually with practice and continued observation of ourselves and those around us, we will disengage from it easily or even avoid it. Okay. So if we can all put our microphones back on mute again. Anybody?
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure, Yvonne, yeah.
So it's not that it's true or it's untrue. It's whether it elevates a human being or, in fact, takes away something from that human being.
Yes. It's whether we start to work together with a common focus of discussing something about a specific individual, or group, or even another group, or even a group of individuals. You know, it's because eventually, although there's a positive there, at some point it'll turn negative.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. You know.
Okay. So I've got a question. So how is it with reading magazines that are about gossip? Is that the same happening?
Absolutely. Yvonne, can you turn your microphone off? I think we're getting lots of. Okay, so okay, great.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's on.
Yeah, that's it. Good show. Well done. We're getting your sweets. Okay. Yes. Now the magazines such as Hello and all those. What else are there? There's other ones, aren't they? Yeah. All of these supposedly high quality glossy magazines that look about and talk about individuals of fame and fortune, as it were, they're the same thing, but they're much bigger. They do it remotely, and they're even more insidious than that which is created by the localized opportunity for gossip and being pulled into a collective with the sole purpose of gossip or talking about somebody or something. So the magazines are just as bad. Yeah, absolutely. I totally avoid those magazines.
They are really addictive. So, I didn't buy them, but I do log into some of them online. So, they've got like a pheromone, and they are definitely very addictive. So I thought it might be the same kind of negative energy.
Yeah, and you know, let's face it, we all go to the hairdressers, we all go to the dentist, we all go to the doctors, and they're there on the table. What do? We open them. We start to read. So it's, you know, everything is presented in front of us with the opportunity of, you know, do we, you know, really realise what's happening and then work on the positive side and ignore it, or do we get sucked in? There's not even know we're getting sucked in. It's difficult, you know.
How is it with news? So if you go to the Evening Standard, and sometimes it does feel quite negative too.
Yeah, I don't read newspapers either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guy, I have a question about this.
Yes, Marley.
How, in a more personal sense, that when this, you know, magazines can be very negative, but what happens, how do you transmute this energy when it comes from your own family? I've had the unfortunate experience lately with my mom's passing, and I would argue that some of this is motivated out of competitiveness with her own sisters behaving and saying things gossipy about her that were trying to get attention to themselves. So how do you transmute that energy from someone without making them angry? I find I'm too honest, and I try to tell people I don't want to hear that, but that makes them angry, and I get frustrated. So can you speak to how I can best handle that when those come too close to home, like with friends and family?
Yeah, move out of the way, move out of the room, stay out of the energy. Simple as that. Because you won't be able to transmute it, because the collective function works very, very well. Yeah. Everybody there who's part of it will be logged into it in an energetic sense. They'll all be more powerful collectively than you are singularly. So you'll never beat the group. The thing to do is just divorce yourself from it and move away. Walk outside, go for a walk in the park, go for a drive in the car, go back home. You know, you can if you wanted to, you could identify that they are gossiping and it's negative, and then walk out. And the mere act of doing that may, if you are lucky, make them sit up and take notice. But don't be surprised if it doesn't work. The only thing you can,
Thank you for the honest answer.
The only thing you can do is lead by example.
Alan and Merle just had a thought, and she's a little too shy to speak it. But one thing that we can say in a circumstance like that is, I can't go there. I wish I leave it there without making anybody wrong.
That's actually a very, very good way. Thank you, Merrill. That's a very good way, and thank you for articulating, Alan. To be honest, one can do this. And that's the same way as I've just explained to Marnie, to say, to say this is wrong and then walk out. But the problem is, we can articulate that way, say I'm not going to go there, and I'll say those words quite a few times. I'm not going to go there. But the thing is, it washes straight over their heads, and it's like water for ducks back with the group mentality. It's like water for ducks back, and the problem is one will sit there being buffeted by the energies, and all you'll do is feel more and more aggressive towards the group because of the, so I'll say, the difference in the frequencies of the energies between that individual and the group. And the group energies will be fighting the individual who's trying to break the group energy up. So it's best in that instance that if it's possible, to move out and go to the bathroom or something, or try to change the subject in some way. One can change the subject quite quickly and quite easily by moving on to a subject of sport, for instance. If there's been a football match that's been particularly interesting, and we can talk about that, blah blah blah, or there's something on the cinema, that's particularly interesting. You can change direction that way, but that's only necessary if there's a need for that individual to stay in the same building, for instance, the same room, or in the same dinner table. If it's possible, then without doubt, the best way is to leave because of the energies involved. To move out in some way. So I say, make an excuse for why you need to leave. Oh, I forgot, I've got to meet a friend, for instance. Those sorts of things, which is a white lie, of course. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes it's a necessary requirement to move out of those energies by, I'm not saying creating a different situation, but actually saying sometimes that, I've got to leave now. Perhaps even just saying I've got to leave now, without identifying why you've got to leave. Say you've got to leave now, and then say your goodbyes and off, and go home early if you're in a group of individuals who are meeting in somebody's house. But in the instance where you have to stay there for whatever reason, for instance, it's your own house, and you can't leave. So in that instance, it is best to try and change the subject in some way by throwing some subject matter in there that will be easily attracted to the group, so they can move away from that which is the gossip. Difficult, but that's the only advice I can give in that instance. Avoid it, or try and transmute the energy by changing the subject to something which is going to be of interest to everybody, and moves it away from that which is directed against an individual or a group of individuals. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? It is a very difficult subject.
Thank you so much. This is terrific.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Well, if there's no more movement on that, I'll move on to looking at the agenda now, see where we are. Okay. A bit of the detail behind the detail of the source entities multiverse. This is a bit of spiritual physics now for those of you who like spiritual physics. I'm just going to shift that out of the way so I can see what's going on. Have I lost it? Okay. During the dialogue with the origin, who is the creator of the source entities, all 12 source entities, of which one of them is our what we call God, our God. I was fortunate enough and honoured enough to be able to be given some more of the information surrounding the structure of what clearly is the structure of the origin, but would be part of the structure behind the structure of the source entity itself. So within the information that I've gathered and put into the history of God and Beyond the Source, parts 1 and part 2, part 2 of course isn't available at the moment, there is information there which expands that information, but within the first chapter, within the first 8,000 words of The Origin Speaks, when I'm directly in contact with the origin only, or should I say the majority of the time, I gained further information about what's going on there. Now, I've described a number of times that there's frequencies that inflate the subdimensional components that inflate the full dimensions, and that mankind doesn't understand that there are full dimensions. We think full dimensions are which is known or understood by myself and some other enlightened individuals throughout history as being subdimensional components. So what we think are dimensions are actually subdimensional components. But what isn't fully understood is those subdimensional components are inflated by frequency bands, and each frequency band above the base full dimension, which is the physical universe is constructed within, is in essence a simultaneous universe that exists in singularity and separateness from that which is the rest of the multiverse. So each frequency band is in essence a simultaneous universe in its own right. If we move from the second full dimension upwards, the second full dimension and the rest of the full dimensions up to dimension 12 have 3 subdimensional components, and each of those subdimensional components is inflated by 12 frequency bands. So each full dimension has 3 times 36 frequency bands. So there's 3 times 12. Sorry, 3 times 12 equaling 36 simultaneous universes. That carried on all the way up to the 12th level. And when an entity has experienced everything within each of those simultaneous universe, they will return back to and become part of the totality, which is the source entity. Whilst still maintaining its individuality of sentience, it becomes part of the whole again and can separate itself later. But the first full dimension is where we are right now in the physical universe, which is a composite dimension. So the 3 subdimensional components actually equal 1 still, and the 12 frequency bands, which would have been part of each of those subdimensional components, actually equals 1 as well. So we're in a single universe that's constructed of 3 subdimensional components and 12 frequency bands. Much of those frequency bands we don't see with the physical eye or the machines that mankind has made right now. But beyond that, and it's alluded to within the history of God, there are, beyond those dimensions, those 4 dimensions, is something called zones. And there's divisions of zones, which I don't understand yet. I'm hoping to get information about later. There's also continuum, and their abstractions. Again, I don't understand that as well, but one of the source entities in Beyond the Source Book 2, the source entity 8, is actually totally constructed of different continuum. It told me to use the word continuum as plural as well as singular, so that's why I'm using that. But apparently there's abstractions of continuum as well, which again I need to understand that. I'm going to make sure that I ask the origin to explain these in some level of detail, which could make it understandable to ourselves. Then beyond that, there's planes of existence and their spheres, which again is above the continuum and their abstractions. And then beyond that, there's spheres independent of planes and their references, which is interesting because the spheres that are individual, that are beyond the planes, are something completely different. They're beyond that, and they have references. And then there's event spaces and their events. And I'm going to explain event spaces a bit more in a moment, because event spaces was what creates parallel universes. I'm going to explain how event spaces multiply, as it were. And then there's totalities and their realities, which is again another set of structural components above the previous one, which is event spaces and their events. And then there's realities and their creative functions. And there's much more to that beyond that. So there's a lot of detail behind that, which is understood currently about the multiverse that our source entity is created, because it also contains that which is part of the origin, because the source entity is an individualized unit of the origin, as we are individualized units of our God. We're all part of our God, and our source entity, our God, is still part of the origin, because it's contained within that which is the origin. Now, my understanding is that there's much, much more, and it's infinitesimal. But one of the things I found out later is that infinities were one of the spaces as well. And that's when I had to stop, because I just started to lose it, basically. I couldn't understand what was coming through. So there's an awful lot of detail there behind the detail. And so if I was to say that if we started with the frequencies and subdimensional components and dimensions, then the detail behind those will be the zones and their divisions, and the detail behind that will be the continuum and their extractions. The detail behind that will be planes and their spheres. The detail behind that will be the spheres independent of planes and their references. The detail behind that will be event spaces and their events, although event spaces individual from all of this anyway. Then the detail behind that will be totalities and their realities. The detail behind that will be realities and their creative functions, etc. That's as far as it goes in terms of the information I've received so far. So it's an awful lot of information there, and I would guess that this particular book I'm working on and the next book, which I'm starting to get an idea of what that's all going to be all about, will give us some level of indication of the greater structure that the source entity is part of. Now, one of the things that Alan and myself have talked about is the space in between space when we talk about the structure of the multiverse within the source entity's environment. And that is there to allow the source entity's maintenance entities to maintain the multiverse, so it becomes the shall I say, the most effective methodology that we've got of evolving, of experiencing, learning, and evolving, and passing that evolutionary content that we've gained back onto our source entity, and similarly it'll pass it on to the origin, where we all evolve together. So there must be something behind that as well, which is all part of what I've just been talking about in terms of the different levels of detail. Now that's a lot of information, very, very quickly, and it's very high level information, and I've not gone into any detail because I don't know it myself. But does anybody have any questions on that? Because it's extremely, I don't think anybody to date has got this level of information in any sort of channeling or any even. I don't think even Rudolf Steiner got this level. And you know a bit about Rudolf Steiner?
Yeah, not that I'm afraid.
No. So this is information that's coming out which is completely new and will need to be fleshed out and described in some more detail later. But does anybody have any questions on this right now? No, Manny, you were clearing your throat. Was that indication of a question about to appear, or no?
I've got the feeling that this kind of information will be easier if I read it.
Yes. Yeah. Now, you may have to wait some time for this, because this book is going to be at least 12 months to 18 months in the making. So it might be 2 years away at least. But yeah, it's something that I'm going to probably do some blogs on as a bit of a prelude to getting the information out there in book form. So I'll probably.
Guy.
Yes, Marnie.
Have you read the Cosmic History Chronicles? Any of those books?
No, actually, I'm trying to not read books these days in fear of it's contaminating the information that I get subliminally. So
yeah, that's a good point, I guess. But some of what you're talking about it reminds me of some of the stuff I've read in that, but I'm struggling to keep up with it. It's very mathematical the way they've written there. So maybe when you're done, I could bounce some stuff up to you that it's similar to what you're talking about, but it's beyond my capability at this point. Like I think Michael said, got to see it and read it.
Yeah. I've got a picture in my mind of a structure. It's unclear at the moment. It's like looking at the signpost on the freeway, and it's about a mile away right now. So I need to get a bit closer, or put a good pair of glasses on to see what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, at some point I'm going to get this information fleshed out even more. I can see there being quite a number of thousands of words on this to even give it some level of reasonable clarity, let alone get into the detail. But yeah, I'll be interested in looking at that, Marnie. If you can send me something, I'll have a look at it and see how it correlates. Interestingly enough, in terms of the detail of stuff, I did read a book that was given to me by one of my Aikido friends, as it happens. A book called Lynchgate by Air Chief Marshal Lord Dowding, which was written in the middle 40s during the Second World War. And I was really pleased to see some information in there. I've shown Alan this, some information in there that has a level of, shall I say, correlation with the information I've received to show the structure of the physical universe in terms of the frequencies and the demarcations for the frequencies that are associated with the physical universe and the physical form, both in the gross physical and the energetic physical of the human form factor. I've showed Alan that last week, actually, in another Skype call we had together, because we contact each other together on a weekly basis to discuss various different things. And I was really pleased to see that this old information, this stuff was 70 years old at least, being so similar to what I've picked up that it justifies and proves out that the information I'm picking up is reasonable and has a level of reality in it other than just me channeling the information. So I was really pleased about that. Okay. If anybody else doesn't have any questions on this, I'd like to move on to the next topic, which is about event space. Okay. Yes.
Now, this question I'd like to ask, I'll ask you on the next meeting, because it's quite deep questions to have anything about them.
Okay, Melanie. Well, we're meeting physically next Friday, aren't we?
Yeah, so I'll ask you.
Yeah. So write everything down, and we'll talk about it in the meet-up at the cafe next Friday. That'll be fantastic.
I don't want to confuse anyone.
Okay. While you're saying that, though, does anybody else have an interest in listening to what Manny's got to say? Because this is an open forum, by the way. So it's not just me talking.
Go for it, Manny. What do you got to say?
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Manny. Do you want to? You've had an invitation there You've had an invitation there to vocalise your thoughts.
I can't hear you properly. Invitation.
To talk about what you were just talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry. No, I'll ask you next week, guys.
Okay. All right.
It's something about the origin and about the understanding of God and everything, recognising God and the energies of God. And I'd like to I've been thinking about what you've been saying. It takes a lot of thought. And I've got one or two questions I'd like to ask you for the next week.
Okay. Well, if you I've had a lot of experience with people claiming to be God. Well, we're all God, Manny. We're all part of that energy, which is that which created us in the energetic, and this little physical part is just a little small part of us that's experiencing existence within the lower frequencies. So we're all, even those who are evil, are part of the source entity, and therefore part of and are, individualized units of God, and therefore are God. So it's that may be difficult for some individuals to get their head around, and as such we have to love them like we'd love our wives or our best friends, even though we don't particularly agree with that which they do. So yeah, I mean, if you have any if you're happy to have those questions shared, we can discuss it next week, and then I can transcribe them in some way, Manny, and we can share them with the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just by the subject on God, it's extremely deep, and the right question has to be asked with the right information. Because I don't like confusing people, because it's a very sensitive subject like God. People easy to be misled, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, okay. I understand where you're coming from now. I mean, Manny's probably talking about how people get sucked into cults and things, and how they can be told that somebody's communicating with God, and it probably is, but they're not particularly communicating with the pure aspect of that which is the Creator. They might be talking to an entity which is not specifically of a higher frequency, or might even actually be an incarnate entity of a higher frequency that's still within the physical universe. But we would still classify it as being energetic, because an awful lot of the physical universe is energetic, but is still physical, and therefore would be to us energetic, because we're so low in the frequencies in this particular form factor. Okay. Right. So I'd like to move on to event space in that way, in this instance now. Now, event space is an assembly of energies, I should say, because there are components to event space, and that's come out of the dialogues involved in Beyond the Source Book 2, that are, in essence, separate from, although part of, that which is the totality, which is the origin, which is also part of the source entity, our source entity, and the other source entities. Now, the event space is what calls or creates parallel universes. So within the multiverse, the structure of the multiverse within our own environment, that environment which is the multiversal environment created by our own source entity, or our own God, has simultaneous universes. So those are universes which exist independently but simultaneously to each other, but they're built upon the previous one. So the frequencies of, say for instance, the 14th simultaneous universe would be finer than that which is in the 13th simultaneous universe, and therefore would allow more content to be within it. But the 14th wouldn't be in existence without the 13th being there, because it's a progression in that respect. It's a reasonably linear progression. But they're there all of the time. They don't reproduce. They don't change their aspect. They are there as a series of universes that can allow an entity to experience that which is presented, or not as the case may be, within that particular frequential environment, frequential universal environment. Now, event space is something that is composed of a series of energies that allows that particular or a particular universe, or some aspect of that universe, localized or holistically, to be reproduced in parallel to that which was there originally. Now, event space can be created by the pure possibility of an alternative. Now, what do I mean by that? That means that event space can be created externally to the creative intention of a sentient or non-sentient but intelligent entity. Now, what that means is that it creates itself based upon that which is it's attracted to, and it's attracted to the possibility of change in essence, or the possibility of duality, or multiple duality. So it's something that will be there to say, well, actually, this is happening right now, but there's a potential for this to happen as well. So if there's a potential for this to happen, then why not show both? So that both possibilities can exist concurrently, independently to each other, whilst being still contained within the simultaneous universe it's part of, but an overlay. This is the parallel condition that we know about, and sometimes some science fiction films or some science fiction books discuss the possibility of parallel universes, but they don't understand how it can work. Parallel existences or parallel locales are created by individuals and groups of individuals, and can interrelate with each other. One of those parallel existences are being created right now, where we're all in communication with each other via rather mechanical means, but nevertheless we're creating a singular event space because we're all here together. There's an aspect of us that maybe didn't meet this time, or forgot the time, or ended up being called away to do something else, and that would create another event space. I mean, and how many of us here may have had something else more important to do, for instance, or was considered to be more important, or somebody said, oh, I could do with some help clearing the garden, for instance, can you help out? And you said, well, no, I've got to do this today for this hour and a half, or whatever it is. That possibility of being called into that other event space meant that some aspect of you was actually called into that, and there's therefore another localized part of event space, another small but localized universe is created, albeit transient, that's allowing some part of the alternative opportunity to play itself out. Now, event space is independent of sentience or intelligence or self-awareness, because most of these things are the trigger for the creation of another event space or another localized parallel environment or parallel universe if it becomes that big. So it doesn't specifically need, as I just said, an entity to create it. It can be created purely upon the possibility of a change in environment. Now, when the origin starts to become aware, or the energies and stuff that cascaded towards the possibility of the origin becoming self-aware, or certainly have some level of intelligence, that was recorded on event space, because the energies of event space, the component energies of event space, recognize the possibility of this being sentient or not being sentient, as the case may be. So all of a sudden there's a multiple of event spaces that were created based upon that which may or may not have happened, or may have happened, but this could have happened instead of, or may have happened and this would have happened, but something else could have happened and something else could have happened as well. So in essence, event space can multiply itself rather fractally, if you want to call it that, in a similar sort of way as a tree would grow a branch, and the branch would multiply and divide, and that part of that branch would multiply and divide. Excuse me, and that branch would multiply and divide. So if you look at this tree and look at how the branch comes off the trunk, and how the different branches come off that branch and multiply, and the branches come off that branch, and then the branches become smaller branches, that become smaller branches, then they become, in essence, twigs. That is how event space can multiply itself, and it can multiply itself within itself as well, and does. So that's, in essence, a way that event space can create itself, and how parallel universes can multiply and become vast numbers, infinitesimally diverse. Okay, any questions on this? Because that's quite a heavy subject.
Well, I'm really glad we're talking about this, because there was an instance in the first book I read about you.
Yes, Michael. Yeah.
You explained something like that to try to fight what before you is futile, in the sense that if something in your life is not making you happy, and you try fighting and stick against it, and so instead of letting it, using the path of least resistance, it would be easier to just let it, to just use the path of least resistance, because fighting it is just futile or something like that. And in relation to this, so if there's different multiverses, multi-universes, so different possibilities are a possibility.
Absolutely, and to be honest, I'm just picking up some information on this, because it's the path of least resistance. Actually, by choosing to go down the path of least resistance, we actually limit the number of permutations of event space that could possibly be created as a result of us fighting that path of least resistance. If that makes sense. And this is the beauty of our levels of creativity that we have. We can choose to go down the path of least resistance, and therefore have a more seamless journey in our experience, learning, and therefore evolutionary content. If we fight against it, we try and do this, that, and the other, then we start to split off aspects of ourselves and do that which we're trying to do in various different ways. That creates the multiple event space. Now, we would, in our incarnate state, only recognize that which is the main event space, we wouldn't recognise the other parts, although we might start to get information thinking it's intuition that results from that aspect of us that's split off into another event space, but maybe it ended up being an event space dead end. So we've learned from that in some way, shape or form, and we start thinking, okay, we shouldn't. I'm glad they didn't go down that route because this would have happened. We're not clever enough to be able to recognise that ourselves. That's happened because some aspect of ourselves has gone down a different event space, experienced that dead end, as it were, and that's been fed back into us. So that aspect of us has come back to ourselves, full with the knowledge of that particular going in that particular direction was in fact a dead end. So every time we think we go down a certain path, which we resisted, but we still go down it, which was still the root of this resistance, that worry of doing the right thing will be justified later, because you'll suddenly get this thing pop into your head. Oh, that would have happened if I'd have gone down that route. Oh, that was a good idea. It's a good job I went down this route still. Those sort of things happen, and that's what makes us recognise that we are going down the path of least resistance, when that aspect of us comes back into us, albeit in an intuitive way, saying that, if you'd have gone down that route, maybe that, for instance, if you would have tripped up and broken your leg, as an example, whereas you didn't, so you didn't. But, that level of thought process may have come into your mind, oh, I didn't do that because that could have happened. And that's the sort of information that comes back when we've been potentially experiencing different event spaces, but the main line of us is still going down the path of least resistance. But at some point there was an argument within ourselves to which way we could go. There was a decision process and a choice that could have been made.
Guy, I want to ask a question, make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So on what Michael said, the path of least resistance, you're saying, if I understood this right, that this limits the number of event spaces that we create?
Yes.
Okay. And then it seems to me an awareness of, like what you're saying, it's understanding the probabilities, seeing the multiple probabilities that could occur, but how is it that we get into the driver's seat of choosing the probability or the event space that is most beneficial to, well, again, I'm interested in going with the flow,
yeah.
Not creating more karma.
Yeah, yeah. So because event space happens concurrently, everything happens at the same time, we can, in essence, live a whole life and have that information fed back to us within a nanosecond, as an example, and then get on a path of least resistance, knowing that we've gone in a certain direction. So we do get feedback from event spaces that have played out totally, and then we if you like, we subconsciously act upon that information. We consider it as being, in some instances, if it's not information that's being given by our guides or our helpers, we do classify it as gut instinct or intuition, for instance. Although gut instinct and intuition is sometimes information being given to us by our guides to make sure that we do certain things at the right time. But even that information may well be given to them based upon this supposed what-if scenario that's been played out in totality through event space, and they've registered it and then said, well, actually, you don't want to go that way, you want to do this instead. So it's all happening concurrently, except that those entities that are our guides, or main guide, and our helpers are more able to log into that which is part of event space than we are, because they're fully in the energetic, whereas this part of us which is in the physical, although it's energetic in its own right, but dense, doesn't have the bandwidth to be able to access that information. So does that answer the question, Marnie? Because that was quite a good question to ask.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? We're sort of clocking up the time now, and we've gone past the three main things I wanted to talk about today. And we've got some opportunity for some questions and answers before we go into the end of meditation that I want to go through.
I'll save it for next week.
Okay. Well, with Manny's permission, I'll try and share the information with the group. If that's okay, yeah. So I can get it clear and understandable. Get the question clear and understandable. Get the answers clear and understandable as well. Okay. Right. Does anybody have any additional questions? No. Okay. Well, what I want to do in this instance now is to, if you like, augment the method of meta-concept meditation that we did last time, and we've done a couple of times now, to not only raise the frequency of the Earth, but more importantly, go wider afield and raise the frequency of the physical universe. It's important to do this because, in essence, at some point, the Earth's frequencies being raised also affects the locale within the physical universe, and eventually, or in some small part anyway, affects the frequency, the base frequency of the physical universe. So what we can do with a small meta-concept that we have, and therefore invoking the law of synergy, synergistic effect, we can in fact help towards raising the frequency of the physical universe, which is something I hadn't thought about until I was writing the agenda down last week, and I thought, that's interesting. That's come through from the source to give us the idea that, why limit ourselves with trying to help ourselves individually in terms of our raising the frequencies and therefore the Earth. But why limit ourselves and just raising the frequency of the Earth? Why don't we go further and just raise the frequency of the universe? So I'm going to go through a series of thought processes there, or should I say visualizations there, to enable us to do that over the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to explain the process of doing this again. For Michael's benefits, what we do is we go through a series of visualizations that I talk you through, and I have to make sure I've got everybody on the list here, make sure we go through everybody, make sure everybody's introduced into a single area of thought process and single area of energetic location, and that we all get removed from it as well. Okay, so what one wants to do now is just close your eyes and sit in a straight back chair if you can do, with your back straight and your eyes closed and your eyes focused upon the area in between the eyebrows. Okay, and above the bridge of the nose. This is where the third eye, or the spiritual eye, resides, and also is where the sixth chakra is, of course. Okay, so just focus on that and make your breathing nice and easy. Make sure you're sitting upright in your chair, and if you can, rest the uppermost parts of your hands on your thighs with your palms facing uppermost, so that you've got yourself into a nice meditative posture, which is consistent with that which is really agreeable to yogis in the Western world. Okay. So, what I'm going to do now is what I do always, is call you into a room, a white room, which is a common location that we can all move into energetically, which means that we're all going to work together with a single focus. So, I'm going to be the start of the circle when we come into the circle, and Anne's going to be the finish of the circle, because Anne's to my right-hand side right now. So I'm going to move into this white room, and within this white room there's 11 chairs, okay? That copes with all the individuals that are part of this circle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people. That's Yvonne, John, Joe, Michael, Alan, Meryl, Fiona, Manny, Marnie, Guy, and Anne. Okay, so I'm going to go into the room first and just sit down in the room and establish the energies that are going to welcome all of us. Okay. And now I'm going to call Yvonne into the room. Okay, because on my screen I've got people in a certain order, and that's the order I'm going to use. I'm going to ask Yvonne to come into the room with me. And just imagine you're walking into a room, Yvonne, or you can float into the room, or swim into the room, or just materialise into the room. Okay, you just come to the door. And sit in a chair. Imagine that there's a circle of chairs. Okay, 11 chairs. And I want you to come and sit down to my left-hand side. Okay, so I'm on your right. So come and sit down on my left-hand side. Good. Okay, well done. Feel the energy there. Good. I want the rest of you to start to feel how the energies feel between you, how you feel yourself, whether you feel tingles or heat or any visual appearances in your closed eye vision, those sort of things. Okay, now Yvonne's in. Okay, sat down just for the moment. Okay, I'm going to call John in. So John can come into the room now. That was very quick, John. Okay, and John can come and sit down in the chairs so that Yvonne is to John's right, and if I was in Yvonne's chair, John would be to your left, Yvonne. Okay, so just sit there for the moment. Okay, so we're starting to build up this synergetic effect already by being in a collective, simultaneous location with our intention upon being together and working together energetically. Okay, now if Joe can come into the room. Okay, she's doing so, good. If you can sit down so that John is to your right, imagine that John's to your right, and there's an empty chair to your left. If John was to turn to his left, you'd see John there. Okay, so sorry, John was to turn to his left to see Joe there. Okay, good. Okay, good. Energy is getting stronger. Excellent. Now, if Michael can come into this room now, this room is white, and you'll see, say, the 11 chairs in a circle, and you'll see already there myself, Yvonne, John, and Joe. Doesn't matter if you can see their faces. Just imagine there's a human form there, sitting in the chairs, and as you sit in this chair, there's a group of individuals already there. There's four individuals already there, and on your right-hand side, there's an individual there, and that's Joe. And on your left-hand side, there's an empty chair right there. Just move into the room and sit down in that chair. Good. Excellent. Okay, now let's have Alan move into the room. Alan, you can move into the room and sit in the chair next to Michael. So Michael's on your right. So again, you can move into the room whichever way you like. Materialise, you can walk in, you can run in, you can fly in, you can swim in, you can float in. Whichever way is most comfortable. Just move into the room. Sit down, that's it. So the Michael's on your right hand side and an empty chair on your left hand side. Excellent. And directly after that, we'll ask Meryl to do the same thing. Meryl, you can come into the room as well. Again, if you move into the room and you see the row of chairs, well, so the circle of chairs, 11 chairs, all being populated, and that Alan would be in the chair to your right. So if you move into that chair that's next to Alan, that's empty, and you sit into that chair, Alan will be on your right. It's a nice white room, lots of nice vibrations, no decorations, just a white floor, white walls, white ceiling, white lights, white chairs, and us. Excellent. Okay. Now I want to bring Fiona in. So Fiona, if you can come into the room as well. Just imagine walking through this door, or materialising in the room, or floating into the room, or flying into the room, whichever way you want to do it. Okay, okay. Good. And then walk, join the circle, sit in the circle of chairs with Meryl to your right. Okay. Now you've not met Meryl before or seen a picture of her, but you know that there's female energies there, and she's on your right hand side, and there's an empty chair to the left hand side. Okay. Good. Now let's see if Manny can come into the room. Manny can come into the room. Okay. And again, there's less and less chairs available now. Manny walks into the room and Fiona's there. Okay, so sit next to Fiona. So there's a spare chair to your left and Fiona sitting on your right. Just walk in and sit down and become part of the circle. And there's just 2 chairs left now. Okay. Good. Now, Marnie, if you can come into the room, please, in the best way you want to. Just materialising or open the door. Good. See you moving in. Again, sit down in the chair that's got somebody to its right and nobody to its left. Good. Okay, excellent. And Anne's going to complete the circle now by coming into the room, because there's only the 1 chair left. So Marnie will be on Anne's right, and Guy, that's me, will be on Anne's left. Okay. So Anne's coming into the room, and she's sat down, which is fantastic. Good. So what we're going to do now is to link up the energies. Okay. So my left hand is going to be in Yvonne's right hand, and Yvonne's left hand is going to be in John's right hand, and John's left hand is going to be in Joe's right hand, and Joe's left hand is going to be in Michael's right hand, and Michael's left hand is going to be in Alan's right hand, and Alan's left hand is going to be in Meryl's right hand, and Meryl's left hand is going to be in Fiona's right hand, and Fiona's left hand is going to be in Manny's right hand, and Manny's left hand is going to be in Marnie's right hand, and Marnie's left hand is going to be in Anne's right hand, and Anne's left hand is going to be in my right hand. So we're all linked up together energetically now. We are 11 individuals focused, working together in the same energetic environment, irrespective of where we are in this particular physicality, and we have the synergetic ability to be a multiple of 11, so it's 11 times 11 in this particular instance. Okay. So, good. Feel the energy is rising here. Excellent. Very powerful. Keep focused on being part of this whole collective. Okay? Just focus on being together. We're all one. We're all one anyway. But incarnate, we are individualized for but a small period of time. But right now, we're all one again. Now I want you to imagine that you're out in orbit, floating above the Earth, which is similar to the Earth healing meditation, but now we're going to move away from the Earth. As we move further and further away, the Earth blurs into the distance, and we start to see the components of all the stars and their configurations that create other solar systems, other star systems, and then we go further out, we see the Milky Way, our own galaxy. We go further and further away, we see other galaxies that are close by, Andromeda, etc., other nebulae, other new unborn galaxies. We go further and further away. We see lots and lots of galaxies flying past us because we're moving right out towards the edge of that environment that contains the physical universe. we need to imagine that there's a barrier to the physical universe. Let's imagine it as a ball. It's not a ball, but it's good enough for visualization. So we're going to move outside now of that ball and see the ball as if we're in orbit of another planet, like the Earth. But this ball is actually the universe, the physical universe, in all its frequencies, containing all of those things that are not visible or not detectable by mankind in its physicality and by use of his machines. So it contains all those other areas of local density that are of higher frequency, that are part of the physical universe. So the whole physical universe is a whole environment, completely composed of component parts that completely fill it. That which we see is a minute aspect of it. What we're seeing now is a complete solid ball containing all of that which is contained within the 12 frequencies that construct the physical universe. If you like, imagine it like a steel ball. Everything is there together solidly. Everything's together. Everything is part of it. Not just what we can see with our physical eyes or with our telescopes, radio, X-ray or whatever, but with everything. Okay. Now what I want you to do is to imagine that this ball, okay, is connected to a dial. And this dial is connected to a piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment is connected to the energies of the source entity, and those energies that are in between, they're in the gaps in between the structure of the multiverse. And they're there to provide energies that maintain the structure of everything that's part of the multiverse that was created by a source entity, including that which is the physical universe. Right now, the dial is set very close to zero. Okay, very, very close to zero. And there's lots of graduations on this dial. Okay, lots of graduations. But let's not go too mad. Let's just increase it to that which is going to be beneficial, but it's not going to upset things. So we're going to recalibrate this dial, the graduations on this dial, and say it goes from 0 to 10. And then if you rotated it round to 0 again, a counter at the side would click to 1. So it's a little bit like an altimeter on an aeroplane, where the needle goes round once and you click one. It clicks once. Okay? But we're only going to go to one level. We're not going to go around several times. We're just going to rotate the knob from 0 to 10, but slowly. So there's potential for it to rotate around 12 times actually, because each of them would affect the frequencies on each 12 frequencies individually. But we're going to just do it once, just to raise everything together. So we're not going to use the counter at the side, we're just going to use the dial. There's a pointer on the rotating part of the dial, and there's numbers around the outside. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now I want all of you to think of now taking that dial, okay, and asking it to move to number 1. Asking it to move to number 1. In moving it to number 1, we increase the frequencies of the whole of the physical universe by 1/10 of the total rotation of that dial in this instance. So we're increasing the base frequencies of the physical universe. Okay? So we've lifted it by 1 point. Good. Try to pay attention or record in your energetic memory that which you're experiencing bodily. Do you experience tingles? Do you experience colours? Do you experience noises? Do you experience tension around the head or around the third eye area? Do you experience discomfort or a wobbly feeling or feeling a bit faint? Just make a note of these. All of these are symptoms of the base frequency of the physical universe affecting our bodies, our physical bodies, the lowest frequency that are part of the physical universe. So this is an indication that things are moving, okay, up the frequencies. So now let's move that dial to number 2. Very slowly bring it around to number 2. Okay, now let's move it round to number 3. Nice and gently. Good, I can feel the differences. Now let's move it round to number 4. Now let's move it round to number 5. Okay, and just for a moment, observe this steel ball that's in front of us, this almost planetary-sized steel ball, which is actually representing the physical universe in totality, that's below us. And note that the colour of it has changed. It's gone from being silver to a more golden colour. This is just a visualization process to show you that things are changing within the physical universe. The base frequency is increasing. It's no longer a dull colour, it's a more bright, vibrant colour. Now we're going to turn the dial around to number 6. And that vibrant colour becomes slightly more vibrant. Now number 7. And it increases in vibrancy. Number 8. And it increases in vibrancy. And number 9, and it starts to glow very vibrantly, very high frequency, shimmering away. And number 10, it shimmers, it grows, glows and glows and glows, increasing in its vibrancy, and it becomes so vibrant that gold changes into transparency, and the physical universe disappears from view. What we've just done is move the whole of the physical universe up a frequential band, so it is no longer visible or perceivable within that which it was previously part of. Now if we consider ourselves to move into the next notch, so that the counter's gone round to 1. I'm assuming we're going to ignore this, but just as an example, the counter's gone round to 1 and the dial is back to 0 again now. It's gone up 1. And we move ourselves up a notch. So we allow ourselves to move up to that next notch rather than the whole physical universe. We start to see the physical universe being presented on that new frequency band, because we've moved ourselves up to that new frequency band. That new frequency band, for those of you who recognise the structure of the multiverse, is 13. I've brought it down to numbers 10. Okay, we've done 0 to 10, but it's just an example of moving upwards. It makes it decimalised. But we've moved the whole thing up into the 13th frequency band. That spare area, together with number 14, that's reserved for the ascension process of everything that is part of the Earth and part of the physical universe. So it's moved up a notch, and it's been created and moved up because we've done it. Now let's move ourselves. Let's leave the physical universe there. Let's leave it high. Okay, this is beneficial to it and beneficial to everything, every entity, every incarnate entity of whatever frequency band that's within the physical universe. Okay, it is beneficial to them as well as it is to us and the Earth. So we're going to allow ourselves to move down now from that 11th notch, if you want to call it that. We're going to go to the 10th, the 9th, the 8th, the 7th, the 6th, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st, and back to 0. And that counter on the other side is 0, 0 as well. But the physical universe isn't there. We've left it up at a higher frequency. So all we see now is just space. It's just pure environment, space. There's nothing there. Because the physical universe is left at a higher frequency. So we'll leave that there for the moment. We've done our job. Let's move our consciousness, our thought process back in the room. So we're all back in the same location. Ready to decouple the meta concept that we just created. Satisfied that we've actually managed to lift the physical universe up a level. And it should stay there. Okay, it should stay there. It should stay up at a higher level than it is currently. While there's positive action, positive thought processes across the whole universe and all the different frequencies, it would stay at a higher frequency because of the work we've done. So now I want us to decouple. So my right hand will let go of Anne's left hand, and Anne's right hand will let go of Marnie's left hand, and Marnie's right hand will let go of Manny's left hand, and Manny's right hand will let go of Fiona's left hand, and Fiona's right hand will let go of Meryl's left hand, and Meryl's right hand will let go of Alan's left hand, and Alan's right hand will let go of Mikhail's left hand, and Mikhail's right hand will let go of Joe's left hand, and Joe's right hand will let go of John's left hand, and John's right hand will let go of Yvonne's left hand, and Yvonne's right hand will let go of my left hand, and my right hand will let go of Anne's. And we're all now separated while still together in this room. And now you can leave the room one by one. So if Anne wants to leave the room first, and then Marnie can leave the room, and then Manny can leave the room, and then Fiona can leave the room, and then Meryl can leave the room, and then Alan can leave the room, and then Mikhail can leave the room, and then Joe can leave the room, and then John can leave the room, and Yvonne can leave the room, and I, myself, will also leave the room. And we all come back into the rooms that we're in physically within our homes or wherever we are. If we're sharing the interface that we're using right now, the computer interface we call Skype, to be together. Okay. How do you feel about that? Any responses? Hi, Manny.
Yeah. You know when you mentioned the dial?
Yeah.
Before you mentioned that, an image came to me, a large circle with 12 little circle digits that look like a dial.
Okay.
Right. And which represents the 12 source entities. And I felt that the audience was very young in its experience. And I thought I'm going to do some artwork, so draw it out, what's on my mind, and I'll put it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I'm thinking. I didn't get the dog before you mentioned it, which I find very quite strange, isn't it? Back on it.
Excellent. Have a go at that, Manny. It'd be useful.
Sorry?
Have a go at that then, Manny. To be useful.
Okay.
Okay. Any other pieces of feedback? Anybody else have any experiences or visualizations or feelings or?
I felt the energy, like the more I was turning the dial, the more I was feeling energized, and so it could definitely feel it in my body.
Okay. Good, thank you. Marnie, how about you? How did you feel?
I felt really refreshed, and my forehead, third eye was really tingling, and like Michael, the dial, I felt tingly and energized as we kept going up in the dial.
Brilliant, thank you. Anne, how did you feel?
I felt we were all very strongly linked up, and it was sort of quite a surprise at the end to sort of come back and find that the other people aren't actually physically, in the same room. It felt like we were all in the same space.
Yeah. Okay. Fiona, how did you feel?
I felt as we were going up to different levels, I could feel different, sort of like tingling. It sort of like made it spread from like my feet. But as we were going up, it was like going up my body.
Good.
So it was very interesting.
Good.
Quite intense.
Good. Yeah.
Meditation, very good.
Good. Good feedback. Meryl, how did you react?
A sense of expansion. That's what I felt.
Ah, very good. Yes. I mean, all of these things are very individual, and they're all proof that you've actually done the job. so it's. I mean, don't worry about whether you've got something different to somebody else. And this is a general comment, because everybody responds in a different way. But the fact that that there's such a diversity so far of responses is fantastic. Thank you, Meryl. Alan, how did you feel?
I was thrilled. A great spiritual teaching down through the ages has been that you are gods, referring to the individual essence of source entity within us. And this exercise or this visualization really gave the sensation, yes, we are gods.
Thank you. Fantastic. Of course, and taking that on board, we're limitless. So there we go. Okay, Joe, how did you feel?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I dozed off several times. We're on the mainland and away from home, and I'm away from my normal environment. But what's interesting to me is that I also work with the universe in some of my meditations. So I was looking forward to this one. Maybe I'll listen to it and pick it up again when it's available for re-listening.
Yeah, good. It's interesting. Actually, it's not falling asleep isn't a problem. What I always say to people when I'm hearing them that actually falling asleep means that the intellect is being removed and the true energetic self is doing the job in a more efficient way. So the fact that you've flipped out, as it were, and had to sleep is actually not a bad thing. It means that there's that greater aspect of you, that the fully energetic side of you, has taken hold of the reins and is been involved in a more fundamental way. So that's excellent, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. John, how about you?
Well, I felt the group quite clearly in the energy building, and then somewhere as the energy started building, I also checked out and came back feeling very expanded and full, and the vibration was very strong, and I feel great. I feel great. Thank you, John.
That's interesting that both Joe and John have flipped out there. Brilliant. I mean, I think all these feedbacks are superb. Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Yvonne. Perhaps Yvonne still flips out. You there, Yvonne?
Can you hear me, guys?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay. I was having trouble staying awake. It's only because I went into a trance immediately upon entering the room.
Ah.
And then I went to a place in India, a really good sacred place. And I got to the top of this mountain and there was a ball. That's all. I thought it was going to be a Buddha. So I went there and just was in awe of the fact that they had this consciousness that is, it's a circle of life and it's a continuum. And then I felt enormously light. And then there was a part of me that this belief of commonality among souls, that we can share this with people that I don't know, with people that I do know, in spirit now, to believe that this is really happening.
Excellent. Well done. So thank you very much, all of you. I think we've overstayed our normal sort of allotted time period of an hour. I think I put down an hour and 10 minutes on this particular agenda. We've done an hour and 3/4. But I'm going to, it's flown by. But thank you all very, very much for being part of this. The next session will be in a month's time. I would guess somewhere around 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20th of 20, maybe the 20th of October. We've got to check that yet, 20th of October. But I'll send an agenda out and make sure that we're all okay. And we can go through the next set of information and next meditation. But thank you all very, very much for participating in that.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?